Before we dive into this story, I need you to do me a huge favor. If you believe in standing up for yourself and that respect is earned, not given, then smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. What my son and his wife did to me was unthinkable, but what I did back to them was unforgettable. Let me know in the comments if you think I went too far. You're nothing but a pathetic old freeloader, living in my house, eating my food. The words flew from my son Mark's mouth like venomous darts, his face a twisted mask of rage. Behind him, his wife Chloe stood with her arms crossed, a smirk of pure, unadulterated triumph playing on her lips. Her expression was the match that lit the fuse. The turkey sat on the Thanksgiving table, perfectly browned, a testament to the 12 hours I had spent preparing this meal for our family. My granddaughter, 7-year-old Emily, was staring at her plate, her little shoulders hunched. The slap came next. Not a gentle tap, but a full, open-palm strike that cracked across my cheek with the sound of a breaking branch. The force of it sent my glasses skittering across the hardwood floor. In the ringing silence that followed, I saw my life's greatest achievement, my son, staring at me not with regret, but with cold, hard defiance. He had done it. He had finally crossed the line from disrespect to outright abuse. And in that moment, as the sting blossomed on my skin, something inside me didn't break. It solidified. It turned from the soft clay of a father's love into the hardest, coldest diamond of resolve. He was right about one thing. I was living in his house, but he and his venomous wife had forgotten a very, very important detail about the foundation of that house. It was built on my money, my sacrifice, and my misplaced trust, and I was about to demolish it, brick by painful brick. They thought they had won. They thought they had broken the old man. They had no idea they had just declared war on a ghost, a man they had long since written off as irrelevant, and that ghost was about to haunt them into ruin. It hadn't always been this way. I remember the day Mark was born like it was yesterday. My wife, Sarah, was exhausted but radiant, holding this tiny, perfect creature in her arms. I looked at him and felt a love so fierce, so absolute. It was like the sun had ignited inside my chest. I vowed in that moment to give him everything I never had, and I did. I worked 2 jobs for 20 years, coming home with grease under my fingernails from the auto shop and sawdust in my hair from the weekend carpentry gigs. I never saw a school play I didn't attend, never missed a baseball game, never failed to help with homework, even when my eyes were gritty with exhaustion. Sarah was the heart of our home, the gentle hand that guided us, but I was the engine, the brute force that kept us moving forward, always forward. We weren't rich, but we were happy. We had love, and we had each other. When Mark met Chloe in college, I was thrilled for him. She was beautiful, ambitious, and seemed to adore him. I paid for their wedding, a beautiful ceremony by the lake that cost more than my first car. I didn't mind. Seeing the joy on my son's face was payment enough. When Sarah got sick, it was the darkest period of my life. The cancer was aggressive, relentless. It ate away at her body, but never her spirit. Mark and Chloe were there, offering support, but I could see the strain. The medical bills piled up, a mountain of debt that blotted out the sun. I liquidated my retirement savings, sold my small collection of stocks, and cashed in my life insurance policy to pay for treatments that might give us a few more months with her. It was never a choice. It was just what you do for the person who is your entire world. After she was gone, the house felt cavernous and silent. The silence was the worst part. It was a physical presence, a constant reminder of the vibrant laughter that used to fill every room. Mark and Chloe came to me one evening, their faces etched with practiced concern. Chloe was pregnant with Emily. "Dad," Mark started, his hand on my shoulder. "We've been thinking. It's not good for you to be here all alone. And with the baby coming, we found a perfect house. It has a mother-in-law suite. You could live with us. Help with the baby. We could be a family again." Chloe smiled, a bright, manufactured thing. "We can't afford the down payment on our own, of course. But with your help, we could make it work. It would be an investment in our future." In Emily's future, I looked at their hopeful faces and the deep, Aching loneliness in my heart yearned for the noise and chaos of a family again. I saw a chance to be a grandfather, to be needed, to fill the silence that was deafening me. I had one last asset to my name, the paid-off house Sarah and I had built our lives in. My financial advisor told me I was insane. "Don't do it, Frank," he'd warned. "Keep the house. It's your security. Rent it out if you need income, but don't sell it." But I didn't listen. I saw my son's future, my granddaughter's future, and I sold my past to pay for it. I wrote them a check for $200,000, the entire proceeds from the sale of my home. It was everything I had left in the world. I thought I was buying into a new beginning. I didn't realize I was purchasing my own prison cell. The first year was wonderful. Emily was born, and she was a carbon copy of my Sarah. Holding her was like holding a piece of my wife again. I was Grandpa, the hero. I changed diapers, I handled the midnight feedings so Mark and Chloe could sleep. I cooked every meal, I did the laundry, I mowed the lawn. I poured every ounce of my remaining energy into that house, into that family. I was happy to do it. I was useful. I was loved. Or so I thought. The shift was subtle at first. It began with small comments from Chloe. "Frank, you missed a spot on the counter. Frank, did you really need to buy the expensive brand of coffee? My paycheck doesn't grow on trees. Frank, Mark and I are having friends over tonight. Maybe you could eat in your room." It's just, the comments are always delivered with a tight, condescending smile. My mother-in-law suite became my room. My contributions became expectations. The meals I cooked were critiqued. The chores I did were inspected. I was no longer a cherished family member. I was unpaid staff. Mark, my son, my own flesh and blood, did nothing. He would stand by, his eyes averted, a weak, placating smile on his face. "Chloe's just stressed, Dad. The baby, her job. You know how it is." He became her echo, her enabler. He chose his wife over his father every single time. My pension check, a modest sum for my years at the auto shop, was direct deposited into a joint account I had set up with Mark for household expenses. Soon, I noticed the balance was always near zero at the end of the month. Chloe was getting her nails done weekly. Mark had a new set of golf clubs. They went out for expensive dinners while I ate leftovers at home with Emily. When I gently questioned it, Chloe's eyes went cold. "Are you accusing me of something, Frank? After we took you in? After we gave you a place to live? You should be grateful. This is the least you can contribute." The word contribute was a dagger. I had contributed everything. I had given them the very roof over their heads. But in their narrative, a story they repeated so often they had come to believe it, they were the saviors, and I was the charity case. My life shrank until it was contained within the four walls of my small bedroom. I was allowed out to perform my duties, babysitting, cooking, cleaning, and was expected to make myself scarce otherwise. My only joy was Emily. She loved her grandpa. We would build magnificent Lego castles and have secret tea parties. She would crawl into my lap while I read her stories, her small head resting against my chest. She was the only one in that house who looked at me with pure, unconditional love. And Chloe began to use that against me. "If you don't do as I say, Frank, maybe Emily won't have time for you this week. She has playdates." My time with my granddaughter became a bargaining chip, a tool to ensure my compliance. The loneliness I had felt after Sarah's death was a pale shadow compared to the soul-crushing isolation of living in a house full of people who saw you as nothing more than an inconvenience and an ATM. I felt myself fading, becoming a ghost in my own life, a silent servant shuffling through the hallways of a house my life had paid for. I would look in the mirror and see a stranger staring back, a man with defeated eyes and a stoop in his shoulders that had nothing to do with age and everything to do with the weight of their contempt. Then came the eavesdropping. It wasn't intentional, not at first. I was walking past their bedroom one night to get a glass of water, and I heard Chloe's voice, sharp and clear through the slightly ajar door. "I'm just so sick of him, Mark. He's always just there, in the way, looking at me with those sad puppy dog eyes. When are we going to put him in a home?" My blood ran cold. I pressed my ear to the door, my heart hammering against my ribs. Mark's reply was a weak mumble. "I don't know, Chloe. He's my dad. He's a burden," she hissed. "His pension barely covers his own expenses, let alone what he costs us. The house is in your name. We could sell it, Move somewhere nicer, somewhere without him lurking in every corner. We could use the equity for a real vacation, not these cheap weekend trips. Think about it, Mark. Freedom, silence. Then my son's voice, so quiet I could barely hear it, but the words were as clear as a bell. You're right. We just have to find the right time. After the holidays, maybe, we'll tell him it's for his own good, that he needs professional care. I stumbled back from the door, a wave of nausea washing over me. Professional care. A home. They were planning to discard me like a broken appliance after they had squeezed every last drop of use out of me. They weren't just ungrateful, they were predatory. They were vultures circling what they perceived to be a dying animal. But I wasn't dead yet. That night, something shifted. The hurt, the deep, sorrowful ache that had been my constant companion for years, began to burn. It smoldered, then caught, and a flame of pure, cold fury ignited in its place. The defeated old man they saw was gone. In his place was a strategist, a man who had been pushed too far and had absolutely nothing left to lose. That brings us to Thanksgiving. I knew what was coming. I had been listening for weeks. They were planning to use the holiday dinner as an opportunity to ambush me, to present their unified front. I decided to let them. I spent 2 days preparing the feast. I made Sarah's recipes, the sage and sausage stuffing, the creamy mashed potatoes, the green bean casserole with hand-fried onions. I did it for Emily, and I did it for myself. It was an act of defiance. I would give them one last perfect memory, a memory that would be forever tainted by what they were about to do. I set the table with the good china, the pieces Sarah and I had received as a wedding gift. As we sat down, the tension was thick enough to carve with a turkey knife. Chloe started. Frank, Mark and I have been talking, she began, her voice dripping with faux sweetness. We're worried about you. Your memory isn't what it used to be. You seem so tired all the time. We think it's time we looked into some assisted living facilities. Mark chimed in, refusing to meet my gaze. Places where you can be with people your own age. They have activities, nurses. I just looked at him. I said nothing. My silence unnerved them. Don't you have anything to say? Chloe snapped, her patience wearing thin. I finally spoke, my voice quiet but steady. This house, I said, looking around the dining room. I paid for this house. Chloe laughed, a short, ugly sound. Oh, here we go again. You gave us a gift, Frank. A gift. You don't get to hold it over our heads forever. It wasn't a gift, I said calmly. And that's when Mark lost it. The pressure, the guilt, the years of being henpecked by his wife, it all erupted. You're nothing but a pathetic old freeloader, living in my house, eating my food, he screamed. And then he slapped me. In that moment, watching my glasses fly, seeing the shock on little Emily's face before she burst into tears, I felt a strange sense of calm. This was it, the final piece of evidence, the undeniable act that would trigger everything. While they stood there, Mark breathing heavily and Chloe looking smug, I quietly stooped, picked up my glasses, and walked to my room without another word. They thought I was retreating in shame. They couldn't have been more wrong. I was advancing to the war room. I closed my bedroom door and locked it. The first thing I did was pull out a small, hidden voice recorder from my pocket and save the recording of the entire dinner conversation, including the slap. The sound was sickeningly clear. The second thing I did was open my laptop and email that recording to my lawyer, Arthur Jennings. Arthur wasn't just my lawyer. He was my oldest friend. We'd served in the Army together 50 years ago. He was the one who had advised me against selling my house, and when I'd insisted, he'd put in a fail-safe that I had prayed I would never need. The $200,000 I had given Mark wasn't a gift. Arthur had structured it as a zero-interest, long-term personal loan. The loan was secured by the house itself, a private lien that wouldn't show up on a standard credit check. It was payable in full upon the sale of the property, or, and this was Arthur's genius, callable immediately under specific conditions. One of those conditions was a breach of the cohabitation agreement we had all signed, an agreement Mark and Chloe had dismissed as a mere formality. The agreement stipulated that I was to be treated with respect and provided with adequate care as a resident in the home. The key clause, the one Arthur called the Judas Clause, stated that any act of elder abuse, be it financial, emotional, or physical, would constitute an immediate and incurable default on the loan. The slap, the verbal abuse, the financial exploitation, it was all documented. The war had already been won. They just didn't know it yet. For the next 2 weeks, I was a ghost. I stayed in my room, claiming I was unwell. I ate crackers and canned soup I had secretly stashed away. I let them think they had broken me. I could hear them through the door, whispering. Chloe was ecstatic. See? He's given up. It'll be easy to convince him to sign the papers now. He knows he's beaten. Mark sounded less certain, a flicker of guilt in his voice. I shouldn't have hit him, Chloe. Oh, stop it. He needed a wake-up call. It was for his own good, she'd reply, her voice a soothing poison. During those 2 weeks, I wasn't just hiding. I was meticulously executing my plan. Arthur had filed the necessary paperwork. The loan was officially called. A formal notice of foreclosure was being prepared. I worked with a financial planner Arthur recommended, a sharp young woman named Maria. We moved my pension direct deposit to a new, private bank account. We opened a trust and made it the beneficiary of my assets, with Emily as the secondary beneficiary, ensuring Mark and Chloe could never touch a cent. I liquidated a few small bonds I'd kept hidden, investments from my carpentry side jobs that Sarah and I had earmarked as our rainy day fund. It wasn't a fortune, but it was enough. It was my escape fund. The day of reckoning was December 23rd. I chose it specifically. I wanted their last Christmas in that house to be a memory of ruin. I could hear them in the living room, excitedly discussing the ski trip to Aspen they had booked for the new year, a trip they were planning to pay for with a home equity loan they intended to take out as soon as I was gone. The irony was so thick, it was almost suffocating. I showered, shaved, and put on the best suit I owned, a dark gray wool suit I had worn to Sarah's funeral. It felt appropriate. I was about to attend another one, the funeral of my son's future. I walked out of my room and into the living room. They both stared at me, surprised to see me looking so composed, so powerful. Chloe recovered first. Frank, feeling better? Mark and I were just about to come talk to you. We found a wonderful facility, just a short drive from here. It's called Sunny Meadows. Her smile was predatory. It's time, Mo. I agree, I said, my voice resonating with a strength they hadn't heard in years. It is time. I walked over to the ornate mahogany coffee table, one I had bought for them as a housewarming gift, and placed a thick legal envelope on its polished surface. What's this? Mark asked, his brow furrowed. That, I said, looking him dead in the eye, is a notice to vacate the premises. The house is being sold. Chloe let out a screech of laughter. What are you talking about, you crazy old man? We own this house. No, you don't, I said, my voice as cold and hard as a glacier. You are merely tenants in a property that secures a $200,000 loan that is currently in default. A loan from me? The color drained from her face. Mark just stared, his mouth hanging open. Loan? What loan? You gave us that money. I did not, I replied, pulling a folded document from my jacket pocket. This is a copy of the loan agreement you both signed. You probably didn't bother to read it. You were too excited about the money. It stipulates that the loan becomes due in full if certain conditions are not met. Conditions such as providing me with respectful care. Conditions such as not stealing my pension money for luxury vacations and golf clubs. I let that sink in. Chloe's face had gone from pale to a mottled, furious red. You can't prove any of that, she shrieked. Oh, but I can. I pulled out my phone and pressed play. The room filled with the sound of their voices from Thanksgiving dinner. Her condescending tone, his weak excuses, and then, clear as day, his enraged shout. You're nothing but a pathetic old freeloader. It was followed by the sharp, ugly crack of the slap. I pressed stop. The silence in the room was absolute. Emily had come to the top of the stairs, her eyes wide with fear. Mark looked like he had been punched in the gut. He sank onto the couch, his head in his hands. But that's illegal. You can't record us. Chloe stammered, grasping at straws. In this state, with no reasonable expectation of privacy during a family argument, it's perfectly legal, I said, quoting Arthur's exact words. Furthermore, I have bank statements going back 3 years showing every unauthorized withdrawal from our joint account. Every spa day, every fancy dinner, every golf game. It's financial elder abuse, Chloe. A felony. I turned my attention to my son, the boy I had raised, the man who had struck me. You, Mark, committed physical assault. That was the final, incurable breach of our agreement. The loan was called the next day. The foreclosure process has begun. The bank now controls the property, and it will be put up for auction in 30 days to satisfy my lien. You have until the end of January to move out. Dad, please, he whispered, his voice cracking. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. We can fix this. No, I said, the word of final, unyielding judgment. You cannot. You stood by for years and watched your wife emotionally and financially abuse me. You let her turn me into your servant. And then you laid your hand on me. You chose her. You chose this life of greed and disrespect. Now you get to live with the consequences of that choice. Both of you, Chloe finally found her voice again, and it was pure venom. You will regret this, you old bastard. You'll be all alone. You'll have nothing. No one. I almost smiled. It was the most satisfying moment of my life, watching the mask of superiority crumble, revealing the pathetic, grasping creature underneath. You're wrong, Chloe. I have my self-respect back. That's something you've never had and never will. And I won't be alone. I looked up the stairs at my granddaughter. Emily, I said gently, would you like to go get some ice cream with Grandpa? She looked from her parents' horrified faces to mine, and then she nodded, a tiny, hesitant motion. She ran down the stairs and took my outstretched hand. Her small, warm fingers wrapping around mine was the only absolution I needed. As I led her out the front door, away from the wreckage of the life they had built on my back, I didn't look back. I never would. The aftermath was exactly as devastating for them as I planned. The house was sold at auction. After my $200,000 and all the associated legal fees were paid back into my new trust, there was barely $30,000 left over for Mark and Chloe. Not nearly enough for a down payment on another house. Not in that market. Their credit was ruined by the foreclosure. They were forced to move into a cramped, two-bedroom apartment on the bad side of town, the kind of place they used to mock. Their friends, the ones they were so desperate to impress, vanished when the money and the big house disappeared. The story of what they had done got out. I made sure of it through mutual acquaintances who were horrified by their behavior. They became social pariahs. Mark had to sell his golf clubs and his fancy car. Chloe had to get a second job waiting tables to make ends meet. The Aspen ski trip became a distant, laughable fantasy. I heard from Arthur that Mark had tried to file for bankruptcy, but between his student loans and the new debt they were racking up, it was a hopeless situation. He was trapped, living a life he despised with the woman who had led him to ruin. As for me, I took my money and my granddaughter and I started over. Not together, of course. I wasn't going to take a child from her parents, no matter how much they deserved it. But I did petition the court for regular, unsupervised visitation rights, and given the documented abuse, it was granted without issue. I moved 2,000 miles away to a small coastal town in Florida where the sun shone almost every day. I bought a modest, comfortable two-bedroom condo with a balcony overlooking the ocean. I spent my mornings walking on the beach and my afternoons reading books I'd never had time for. I joined a local woodworking club and started building furniture again, not for money, but for the simple joy of creating something with my own hands. The stoop in my shoulders straightened out. The defeated look in my eyes was replaced by a calm, peaceful clarity. I was no longer a ghost. I was myself again, Frank Miller, a man who had survived. Emily would fly down to visit me once a month. At first, Mark and Chloe fought it, but their lawyer told them it was a losing battle that would only cost them more money they didn't have. So, my granddaughter and I had our time. We built sandcastles. We went fishing off the pier. We had ice cream for breakfast sometimes just because we could. During one of her visits, when she was about 9, she asked me a question that I knew would come eventually. We were sitting on my balcony, watching the dolphins play in the surf. "Grandpa," she said, her voice small, "why don't you live with Mommy and Daddy anymore?" I took a deep breath and chose my words carefully. I would not poison her against her parents, but I would not lie to her either. "Sometimes, honey," I began, "people forget how to be kind to each other. They forget to say thank you, and they start to believe they are owed things they haven't earned. Your parents, they forgot how to be kind to me, and I had to leave so I could remember how to be kind to myself. She seemed to understand. She laid her head on my shoulder, and we watched the sun set together. Mark tried to call me a few times. The first time, about a year after I left, he was crying, begging for my forgiveness, begging for money. I listened to him, and I felt a faint echo of the love I once had for the boy he used to be, but it was buried under too much scar tissue. I forgive you, Mark, I said, and I meant it. But forgiveness and trust are two different things. You destroyed my trust, and that can never be rebuilt. You are a grown man. You need to learn to stand on your own 2 feet. I hung up and blocked his number. I knew that giving him more money would just be enabling the same destructive behavior. The greatest gift I could give him now was the harsh reality of his consequences. Sometimes, the most loving thing a parent can do is to let their child fail, especially when that failure is of their own making. My revenge wasn't just about punishment. It was about justice. It was about reclaiming my life, my dignity, and my future. They had tried to write the final chapter of my story, casting me as a pathetic old man dying alone in a state-run facility. But I took the pen back. I wrote my own ending, one filled with sunshine, self-respect, and the pure, uncomplicated love of my granddaughter. They wanted to put me in a home, and in a way, they succeeded. I was finally home, in a place I had built for myself, on a foundation of strength they never knew I had. So that's my story. It's a hard story, a painful one, but it's a true one. They thought my kindness was weakness, my generosity an obligation. They learned, in the most spectacular way possible, that the quietest people often have the firmest boundaries, and once you cross them, there's no coming back. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to share your own stories of standing up for yourself in the comments below. Your story might just give someone else the courage they need. Hit that subscribe button because we all deserve to see justice served.